Evaluating and examining oral communication activities. Today, in my presentation, I am going to evaluate and examine an oral communication activity by watching videos. To examine an oral communication activity, we should take note these following. First is narrate the process, whereas we should narrate and tell in how an oral communication happened, and in general, we should know the elements of communication. Next is identify the functions of the speech or communications activity, if it's regulatory control, social interactional, motivational or informative, and emotional expression. Next is identify the possible model that can be associated in the communication activity. If it's Aristotle speaker-centered model, Scrum's model, source message channel receiver, or SMCR model, linear communication model, interactive communication, or transactional communication model. Lastly, identify the barriers of communications present if there is are and the given solutions and strategies the speaker did to solve or avoid it. We should identify the barriers of communication such as emotional barriers, use of jargon, lack of confidence, and noisy environment and how they solve it. I am gonna present 3 videos before we examine an oral communication activities.
What do you do when the mountain seems too large? When the weight of the world feels too heavy? When the burden is too much to carry? When the hole seems too deep to climb out? What do you do when it all seems impossible? You might be going through something right now. It might be frustrating. You might be working hard to change and not seeing any results. And you may have tried almost everything and nothing has worked. You can be frustrated, but you cannot quit. Because quitting is the only way to guarantee failure. Quitting is the only way to guarantee the suffering stays. No matter how you feel, keep going. When it seems unlikely, when it seems impossible, when it seems like there's no way out, I tell myself this, day by day, one day at a time, I will be closer. Step by step, one step at a time, I will be closer. Choice by choice, one choice at a time, I will be better. If I look at the enormous mountains ahead, I might never take that first step. But if I take that first step, and my focus is always on the next step, and I continue to take those strong steps forward, soon I will have gained so much strength and so much progress that I will have no choice but to finish my journey. If I tackle my challenges day by day, and my focus is on improving every day, not by conquering everything immediately, just improving
This video was titled Day by Day, and the speaker is Chris Ross. The message of the video conveyed to inspire people to continue conquering their purpose, even though they fail, because day by day they will develop their skills. The medium used is a verbal communication and a non personal communication because there is no contact nor have a face to face interaction. Next is the receiver of the message from the video is those people who are watching and listening the video. The function of speech is motivational. The function of speech or communication activity is motivational, whereas it encourages and motivates the receiver to fight and to continue conquering your purpose in life, because failure is the moment that you give up. MSCR model is the model present in the video. SMCR model that stands for sender, message, channel, and receiver. The sender is the speaker in the video. The message is what things that conveyed in the video. The channel used is non-personal and verbal. The receiver is the people who receive and listen the video. The barriers of communication is emotional barrier. Emotional barrier is present in the video, in which they encountered having no chance and having frustrated for not having their purpose even though they already give their best. Their solution for this is to keep fighting and conquering their will, because the person who give up is a real example of a failure. This is the second video, and let's watch this.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., in a 1968 speech where he reflects upon the civil rights movement, states, "In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends." As a teacher, I've internalized this message. Every day, all around us, we see the consequences of silence manifest themselves in the form of discrimination, violence, genocide, and war. In the classroom, I challenge my students to explore the silences in their own lives through poetry. We work together to fill those spaces, to recognize them, to name them, to understand that they don't have to be sources of shame. In an effort to create a culture within my classroom where students feel safe sharing the intimacies of their own silences, I have 4 core principles posted on the board that sits in the front of my class, which every student signs at the beginning of the year. Read critically, write consciously, speak clearly, tell your truth. And I find myself thinking a lot about that last point, tell your truth. And I realized that if I was going to ask my students to speak up, I was going to have to tell my truth and be honest with them about the times where I failed to do so. So I tell them that growing up as a kid in a Catholic family in New Orleans, during Lent, I was always taught that the most meaningful thing one could do was to give something up. Sacrifice something you typically indulge in to prove to God you understand His sanctity. I've given up soda, McDonald's, French fries, French kisses, and everything in between. But one year, I gave up speaking. Figured the most valuable thing I could sacrifice was my own voice, but it was like I hadn't realized that I had given that up a long time ago. I had spent so much of my life telling people the things they wanted to hear instead of the things they needed to. Told myself I wasn't meant to be anyone's conscience because I still had to figure out being my own, so sometimes I just wouldn't say anything. Appeasing ignorance with my silence, unaware that validation doesn't need words to endorse its existence. When Christian was beat up for being gay, I put my hands in my pocket and walked with my head down as if I didn't even notice. Couldn't use my locker for weeks because the bolt on the lock reminded me of the one I had put on my lips when the homeless man on the corner looked at me with eyes up, merely searching for an affirmation that he was worth seeing. I was more concerned with touching the screen of my Apple than actually feeding him one. When the woman at the fundraising gala said, "I'm so proud of you. It must be so hard teaching those poor, unintelligent kids," I bit my lip because apparently we needed her money more than my students needed their dignity. We spend so much time listening to the things people are saying that we rarely pay attention to the things they don't. Silence is the residue of fear. It is feeling your flaws gut-wrench guillotine your tongue. It is the air retreating from your chest because it doesn't feel safe in your lungs. Silence is Rwandan genocide. Silence is Katrina. It is what you hear when there aren't enough body bags left. It is the sound after the noose is already tied. It is charring. It is chains. It is privilege. It is pain. There is no time to pick your battles when your battles have already picked you. I will not let silence wrap itself around my indecision. I will tell Christian that he is a lion, a sanctuary of bravery and brilliance. I will ask that homeless man what his name is and how his day was, because sometimes all people want to be is human. I will tell that woman that my students can talk about transcendentalism like their last name was Thoreau. And just because you watch one episode of The Wire doesn't mean you know anything about my kids. So this year, instead of giving something up, I will live every day as if there were a microphone tucked under my tongue, a stage on the underside of my inhibition. Because who has to have a soapbox when all you've ever needed? Dr.
The video was titled The Danger of Silence, and the speaker is Clint Smith. The message of the video conveyed to inform people about the danger of silence that can lead to discrimination, racism, and more. The medium used is a verbal communication and a personal communication. The receiver is the audience who are listening. The function the function of the speech or communication is informative, whereas he informed the audience about the danger of silence and how it will affect to an individual. Next is the model that presents in the video is Aristotle's speaker-centered model. Why? Because Aristotle's speaker-centered model it describes an one-way interaction, like what Clint Smith did. The barriers of communication represent is lack of confidence. Yeah, in which they weren't able to speak up and be free to itself, and the possible solution for this is to gain self-esteem and confidence for yourself to burst out. Let's watch this last video.
Somebody out there who's thinking about quitting, is thinking about giving up. This is for you.
You're going through a tough time. Maybe you're walking through real depression. Maybe you are in a valley today that you've experienced the worst failure of your life and you are on the verge of giving up. Maybe you're here today and your marriage is on the rocks. Maybe you're here today and you're dealing with anxiety on a daily basis.
You know what it's like to be in a lonely, dark place. You know what it's like to want to quit. You know what it's like when the pressure's overwhelming, when people expect your best, but you're at your worst. That is a moment of choice. That is a moment of decision.
What will your response be? Are you going to sit back or are you going to step up?
Don't give up. Don't give up. Stay in it. Stay focused.
Adversity creates the perfect moment for audacity. It's in your adversity, the thing that comes out of you is what defines you. When life is squeezing you and pressure is on you, what's really inside of you?
When life knocks on the door, when you go through some stuff, when you get a bad diagnosis, that's when you have to pull on your faith. That's when you have to be resilient.
If it feels kind of dark all around you right now, I want to remind you, it is always the darkest before dawn. And dawn is coming.
You've got to be willing to go against the tide. You've got to be willing to harness your will and say, in spite of this, I'm in control here. I'm not going to let this get me down. I'm not going to let this destroy me. I'm coming back. You can decide that you're going to stand up to life. You must have faith. You've got to believe in yourself. You've got to believe in your abilities. You've got to believe in your service, your company, your ideas. Unquestionably, you've got to have faith, and that faith gives you patience. It's not going to happen as quickly as you want it to happen, but you've got to keep moving.
The video was titled Going Through Hell, and the speaker is Tyrese Gibson. The message of the video conveyed that in times of difficulties and circumstances that you are facing, you need to stand still until you overcome those things in your life. Next is the medium used is a verbal communication and non-personal communication. The receiver is the people who listen the video and watching the video also. Next is the function of the speech or communication is motivational. Function of the speech or communication activity is motivational. Whereas he informed the listeners about fighting through struggles and overcome difficulties by trusting yourself and have faith to God. Next is the possible model that associated in the video is SMCR model that stands for sender, message, channel, and receiver. The sender is Tyrese Gibson. The message the video conveyed, the channel non-personal and verbal. The receiver is the people who listens the video and watch the video. The barriers of communication that present is emotional barrier. The emotional barrier in which they are affected by their emotions for facing challenges in life. The possible solution for this is to trust yourself and have faith to God. That's the end of my presentation. That's all. Thank you.